Feel free to return to our channel at any time. Sitting alone in a quiet room with a glass of red wine in her hand, Grace Slick, the electrifying voice behind acid-soaked songs and unashamed disobedience, stares intently into the darkness with her keen, unblinking eyes. When she eventually speaks, don't flinch. Her laughter lacks amusement. This warning shot is icy and abrasive. She has never been one to hold back. She is now finished with maintaining peace, decades after the psychedelic haze has gone and the peace banners have faded with age. Not because of resentment or animosity, but because she has to face the music. Revolution, bringing down the walls, was intended to be the theme of the 16th century. Grace, though, witnessed more than just deities strumming guitars beyond those walls. Acting as cowards, they wore costumes. Some betrayed their word, some hurt others, and a select handful ruined music by burying it in the ashes of ego, addiction, and commercial decay. Now she's bringing them back from the dead. As she lists them off, the first one that stands out is Jim Morrison, a name that continues to split followers. Fans who idealize Morrison's erratic genius may be surprised to hear that Grace never believed in the Morrison myth. He was not a poet in her eyes. A narcissist, he was. He was referred to as the Lizard King by others, but she viewed him as a liability. She could see right through the leather leggings and the inebriated screams from the stage. In the late 16th, they were both on the same wild stages, but Grace saw Jim pass out from the show. His acts lacked daring. They served no purpose. For Grace, it was ego masking his excess, while everyone else saw tortured talent. The sound of the door was sacred to her. Nevertheless, not the man who used every opportunity to further his own narrative. Paul Kantner was the next name on the list, and if Morrison stood for extravagance, then he was a far closer relative. Being co-pilots of the counterculture and co-founders of Jefferson Airplane, this one hit closer to home. A slow brewing battle, nevertheless, lay underneath the hallucinogenic harmonies. Grace befell Paul as he transformed into their greatest enemy, overbearing, unyielding, and unable to allow the band to progress. Their artistic disagreements became deeply personal. Disputes sprang out during studio sessions. Love songs became coded insults. They were deeply wounded by each other's betrayal, even as lovers. His ambition wasn't what made her furious. His fear was adaptation anxiety. Anxieties about raising her voice. Moreover, the equilibrium changed in tandem with the band. She desired a revolution, Grace. Paul yearned for dominion. Ultimately, their ideologies were more divisive than their musical differences. Intimacy was at the heart of her resentment for Kantner. For the simple reason that my childhood home fostered my imagination. Considering that we lacked a television set, they tuned into Ronald's radio show, The Halls of Ivy. David Crosby, on the other hand, evoked a chillier emotion, revulsion. While the general public saw David Crosby as a master of harmony, those close to him saw nothing but ostentatiousness cloaked in feathers and fringe. During the legendary heyday of Laurel Canyon, when folk rock artists would lounge barefoot in sunlit living rooms and whose egos would grow as fast as their joint smoke, their paths would intersect. She cautiously approached Crosby at first, admiring him. His reputation as an outspoken pioneer piqued her interest. Their initial fascination quickly transformed into resentment during their initial recording session. Raw, experimental, and edgy, Grace laid down a vocal recording. Crosby smirked as he listened, then sneered and laughed it off. The room fell silent as everyone watched. Grace became icy. Tensions persisted for the next several months. They argued whenever they met, be it at a festival, a radio panel, or over a shared meal. While she was thinking, he would cut her off, cast doubt on her narratives, and make fun of her song lyrics as if she were a sideshow. He made the bold assertion that female voices did not have the same spiritual weight as male vocalists during a party in Topanga Canyon one night. After furiously tossing her drink into a nearby shrub, Grace stormed off, vowing she would never again share a microphone with him. Grace thought Crosby thought he was unbeatable. Even worse, he thought she might be replaced. Her mere existence in rock piqued his interest. His haughtiness was like velvet-encased aggression to her. At a time when men dominated with quiet arrogance, Crosby's inflated sense of self-importance was the icing on the cake. Grace was independent and self-reliant. All she needed was respect, which Crosby never provided. Even in the midst of love and serenity, she bore the weight of resentment like a medal of honor. Gene Simmons, someone she despised from their first handshake, appeared just when she believed the rock scene had exposed all its deceit. That stuffy, artificial masculinity was there the second Grace laid eyes on him. In her view, Simmons was not a rock. A walking billboard for excess, he embodied theater god haughtiness, a rebellious caricature cloaked in market-tested bravado. He promoted music like a commodity rather than a blood sacrifice. Unfortunately, consumers purchased it, not because of their stage presence that she despised Kiss. Rather, she despised them for commercializing defiance and transforming grime into glamour. Fans plunged themselves into a show that was soulless, with only smoke machines and advertising campaigns for entertainment, while she watched in disbelief. It was the treatment, not the show, that was problematic. Women were treated as objects rather than people. How? Instead of being a haven for art, backstage seemed like a hunting field. Simmons appeared to wear misogyny like face paint. He never removed it from his menacing glare and predatory charisma. He was more than just an annoyance to Grace, who had spent her whole life navigating male-dominated green rooms and fighting for the ability to shout as loud as any man on stage. His hideous appearance served as a symbol of the many problems that the Revolution had failed to resolve. It was a mockery of what she had fought for. He infuriated her rather than offended her. Why? Because Gene Simmons was complicit in the problem and even made money off of it. Additionally, Grace had never been one to be quiet when the truth demanded attention. At last, the one name, Ted Nugent, that she mentions with a venom that transcends decades. When it came to Nugent, the situation was black and white. Grace saw him as more than simply a provocateur. He embodied the same thing she had fought her whole life to avoid. Despite its disguise, this fear-fueled weapon is loaded and ready to fire. His animosity toward women, the weak, and anyone who dared to challenge authority was evident in every word he spoke. She had just a single interaction with him, but it was sufficient. Ideals clashed more violently than guitars at this 1980s political benefit. With an air of self-confidence, he walked up to her. Grace retreated, hand outstretched, and mouth agape, motivated by instinct rather than timidity. Danger. Her stomach roiled. A branding iron was the sensation of his handshake. Next, his set arrived, and not merely aggressively so. Everything from the lyrics to the posture to the hulking display of manhood. An ugly display of power was going on throughout. He wasn't playing. To free himself, he fought to the death. During the performance, she abruptly exited, her expression revealing her disdain as she used expletives that journalists would never dare to publish. No, it wasn't merely the din. That was the point. An incitingly scornful brand of nationalism characterized by perverted patriotism and the promotion of violence. Nugent yelled out commands as Grace sung a song of independence. A cries for fairness erupted from her defiance. That one, a commanding snarl. She saw Nugent as the embodiment of all that was worst about rock music, a revolt devoid of direction, a man who hid his hate behind his charisma, and the outcome of this depletion of rock spirit. She cautioned everyone she could think of, and she never forgave him. When a revolution loses sight of its original motivation, this is the result. Being polite was never something Grace Slick cared about. In the psychedelic revolution, she didn't make it by just nodding and smiling. It didn't kill her. By defiantly rejecting the idea of conformity, turning the tables on males in boardrooms, and standing firm against their attempts to control her presence. Names were mentioned, she said. Fascists were her targets. Legends made her giggle, and icons were hers to look down. In spite of all the peace signs and flowers, she never stopped fighting for the right to be herself, and she made sure the world knew it. She had more than simply a personality clash with these five. They represented a disease that she observed developing in rocks. Pride, deceit, and taking advantage of others. That conflict was a failure for them. In her view, they were not adversaries. They served as cautions. That decay might begin even during a revolution is demonstrated by this. Grace was never invited to stay in the house that decay constructed. She was rude in her knocking. As smoke billowed about her, she kicked in the door, yelled, and set fire to the stage, solely to determine who have the audacity to remain and endure her wrath. Nobody should have fawned over her. Listening to her was her purpose. Her uncensored and unapologetic words resounded long after the ovation subsided. Grace persisted in denouncing those who sought to destroy it for ulterior motives. Because of this, her wrath persisted. It became a lasting legacy that serves as a reminder to all generations that rebellion is meaningless if it fails to remember its intended protectors.